I have dedicated my professional career to the study and control of arthropods.
Hey, this is another video to Empty Without Jesus. I am gonna make this video. You made you made a total of 6 comments on the first 2 parts of an older series I'd done back at the end of July to you on your Darwin videos, and I hate responding with the text. I hate that limit, that character limit, and doing multiple parts if I don't have to. So for me, it's a whole lot easier to make a video response, and I'll put up I'll list all of your comments in the description here, so everybody doesn't have to go back and look at the original ones. So I'm going to respond to them in order, although you made comments on video 1, 3 comments, and then 3 comments on video 2. I'm going to start with 2. Simply because when we get down to it, there's some overlap, and I'll discuss the other ones in that context, if that makes sense. Hopefully, I'll be able to do this in one part. I probably doubt it, but I'll do it my best. And I have these here copied, so I'm going to be looking over to see what you said. The first thing I wanted to mention here is you state your very first comment on that is, first of all, I feel like I'm being talked to by Lars Ulrich. Funny to me anyway. I just had to say that. Now, I know who Lars Ulrich is. He's that guy from Metallica. I don't know squat about, well, I don't know anything about Metallica. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's I don't know if it's a compliment, if it's an insult. I don't know. Do I sound like, I don't know, somebody who would take $500,000 from our record company to pretend that I've been hurt by file sharing because I'm a complete and total money-grubbing chode? Is that what I sound like? I don't know. Maybe so. If that's the case, I apologize. So anyway, if it's a compliment, if you happen to admire the guy and that's a compliment, thanks a lot. If it's an insult, screw you. You know, I don't know what to say. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so I'm going to go now to your comments here. You say, I disagreed that my papers would get published. I saw a note from an editor that would not publish Micheal Behes' article. You got to not believe the Discovery Institute's versions of how those things play. It has become the new thing for these ID people to submit a paper to a major journal. You got to understand, first of all, most papers anybody submits to a major journal are rejected. Okay, the standards for the big ones are really, really tight. It's a huge deal to get published in something like Nature or Science. That aside, they put these things out there. The standards for publication, the standards for peer review are really, really strict. Okay. If the topic isn't, I mean, you can write the best article in the world, and if you submit it to the wrong journal, where it's not really the topic of what they publish, it gets rejected. That's how it happens. But they've been doing that purposefully and getting these rejection letters so that they can claim that they're being excluded from science. They're not being excluded from science. They're not doing science. Okay? Things like the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences do not publish. They publish research, okay? They don't publish meta-analyses of other people's work, okay? It's just simply not the format for that. And that's where Micheal Behes attempted to publish. He gets a rejection letter, and the editor was actually, in those cases, was very kind. And anyway, the whole point is that if you did an actual scientific experiment showing that natural selection couldn't explain all of the data, nor or standard modern evolutionary biology could not explain the data you found, you would get published. Okay, if you say in there must be a creator, it's not going to get published because that's not doing science. Okay, you could imply that through the data that you do present without actually having to say it. Okay. Micheal Behes, those people do. And by the way, you do know, just so for your information, Micheal Behes believes in that whole molecules to man evolution. He believes that life came about through chemicals and protoplasm that crawled up out of the sea and all of that stuff that you guys are against. He just believes that God sort of influenced it. Okay, just for your information. I'm going to check my time here real quick. Okay, I'm about half over. I'm not going to make this through one part. Okay, Dawkins, your opinion. That's not really enough information for me to go on. I don't know if you mean that Dawkins would absolutely demolish Ray Comfort in he really truly would. Again, you can say, yeah, and it is my opinion. I'm going to argue that it's, but Dawkins is significantly more intelligent than Ray Comfort is. Okay, I have watched a lot of Ray Comfort stuff. The banana fiasco. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest. I mean, it's become the evolutionist's nightmare has become like such a cliche now. It's what most people. It actually hurt your side so bad because that's what when people hear the word creationist, they immediately think of that guy holding a banana. Anyway, but that's a I don't know. Ray Comfort, deer in the headlights, sort of like when I ask atheists how the universe gets created from nothing. You're not asking the right atheists, okay? Ask atheists who study cosmology, okay? Ask somebody who actually does research in cosmology how they would answer that question, and you won't get the deer in the headlights thing, okay? You completely seem to misunderstand my answer to that. You stayed out here. How did the first life form get created from nothing? It didn't get created from nothing. We now know, and this is a fact, okay, this concept of there being lifeless chemicals and then a fully functioning cell, like the creationists like to paint the picture of abiogenesis, that somehow one turned into the other spontaneously, is not what we're saying. Between those lifeless chemicals and that cell are huge amounts of things that we don't know whether to call them alive. There are microspheroids. There are self-replicating nucleotides chains of nucleotides, things, RNA chains that make, I think, 22 RNAs long that can replicate themselves. They're not alive, but given the right chemicals, they make more copies of themselves. They act like living things. There are then viruses. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between that. It's not as simple as this chemicals came together and made an amoeba, okay? An amoeba is an incredibly complex life form, all right? And that's what you guys don't seem to understand. And I know they always like to pretend that science stopped with the Miller-Urey experiment back in 1953, but the reality is it's been progressing. And again, abiogenesis isn't my field. I know a bit about it because I've done a few lessons on like the evolution of photosynthesis, which we understand very, very, very well. Those kinds of things. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about that. You say it has never been observed, so it must have been magic. Again, science isn't about direct personal observation. You believe in atoms, right? I'm assuming. I'll check my time. You believe, in nuclear fission. You believe that exists. You believe atomic bombs blow up. I mean, well, I guess that's. We have indirect observations of that through videotape and such. But you believe in atoms. You believe that you're surrounded by air molecules. You can't see them. How do you know they're there? You know that, first of all, other people have studied them, but you also know through a series of inferences, that things like that electrons exist, that electrons behave the way that scientists do. I highly doubt you've done Maxwell's equations yourself. You trust that those work. You see the results of their work, but it could be magic. You don't know that for a fact. But you have a great deal of, you put faith in that belief. Likewise, evolution, abiogenesis, the origin of the universe, these kinds of things scientists are working on. There are inferences that those things exist, okay? There's a whole huge amounts of independent lines of data, okay, that show that these things are real. It's not just a guess. It's not just something that somebody sat around in an armchair and said, it would be really interesting. What if amoebas turned into man? That'd be really interesting. Okay, it's not like that. I'm going to make part 2.